in the blank. You're not getting any younger. So you said you knew what you were going to say.
No, I knew that you were going to ask. I didn't think about what I was going to say. So you're not getting any younger. So go out there and make today the best day ever.
Hey, you. Yes, you. Welcome to the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast, a podcast for people who want to disrupt their lives for a good reason, to make it count. I'm your host, Jen Glantz, and every week I'll drop a new episode with stories from real people just like you, who woke up one morning and decided to make big changes, starting with small things. We'll cover topics like entrepreneurship, love, failure, and self-care. Hey, you're not getting any younger, so let's make this an adventure. Ready? I have a birthday, and my birthday is on April Fool's Day, which is such the perfect birthday for me. And I'm excited about that. The only thing I wanted for my birthday this year were rollerblades, and Adam got me rollerblades. I've been taking those around town, and I'm just so enjoying going around Brooklyn on rollerblades. Don't worry, I'm wearing all the pads. I got the wrist pads, the elbow pads, the knee pads, the helmet. I mean, if there is a pad out there, I am wearing it. I am practically like wrapping myself in bubble wrap. I'm a really good skater. I really like it, but you can never be too safe. So I'm definitely wearing all of the gear. I hope to be posting a picture soon for you in a safe kind of way on Instagram when I have all the gear on and I'm not selfieing and riding at the same time. I won't be doing that. I'm excited because this week's episode is with somebody who was actually my first unofficial podcast guest. Before I started the podcast about 3 years ago, I wanted to do a practice interview, so I asked Adam to be that person to do a practice interview with. And we recorded a little bit of a podcast. It ended up being not good at all. I think we both just sort of were listening back and were like, no, this is not good. I was so self-conscious back then too. So never actually aired that episode, but it would have been my first guest, my first episode. And here we are almost 3 years later at the over 160 episode mark. And I'm bringing Adam back on officially as a guest. And he is part of the series where one time a month I bring on a friend or somebody in my life as a guest on the show and interview them about a topic I think they're good at, but don't tell them what it is. So when I invited Adam on the show, I gave him zero heads up about what we were talking about, which of course is never really nice to do to my guests, but we had a lot of fun. You're going to hear about how we met. You're going to hear about how we auditioned for The Amazing Race and we almost got on the show. You're going to hear about how we spent 2 years living in new cities all around the country, and you're going to hear a lot of other awesome things. So make sure you listen to the episode and make sure you listen to the very end of the episode because, wow, there's an awesome surprise right there for you, my guests. And hey, if you like this episode, share it with your friends. Tag me on Instagram at Jen Glantz, at Any Younger, and come say hi in the secret You're Not Getting Any Younger Facebook group. There's over 1,500 people in that group who are waiting to say hello to you. And finally, if you love this show, the only birthday present I am asking for this year is reviews. So when you're listening, if you can scroll up or scroll down and leave us a review, that means the world to me. All right, keep pressing play, keep going on this episode, enjoy it, and I'll catch you next week. I am so excited to introduce this week's podcast guest, the one and only Adam Kossoff. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Jen, happy to be here.
We've had to do that introduction about 4 different times, so that's why I sounded extra energetic, but I'm also super pumped to have Adam on the show. The interesting thing about Adam is that when I started this podcast almost 3 years ago this month, I needed to practice my interviewing skills. So I forced Adam to sit down with me and I recorded a mini episode with him. And it was so bad, I never released it to the public.
I can't believe you invited me back.
But here we are. I invited him back, even though he was technically my first guest. But
every other guest since has been better.
No, it's not even about the guest. It's about me. I feel like I've gotten less awkward. Even now I'm feeling sort of awkward because this is like an interesting person to interview, but you're guest number 160, which is pretty cool. So welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jen.
Okay, so if you're listening and you're like, who is Adam and why is Jen so bubbly right now sitting here with him? Adam, I'm going to ask you a question I ask all of my guests on this podcast. Are you ready?
Yes.
How would you introduce who you are and what you do to a person you just met at a party?
I thought you were going to ask, so you're not getting any younger. So
yeah, you'll be asked that toward the end.
Okay. I'm unprepared for that. But about this one, other than the fact that we've known each other for about 5 years, I guess when I walk into a party, people don't know me. Probably wouldn't say this, but I am a lifelong biz kid. More on that, I guess. Maybe we can dive into it at some point. But I've been an entrepreneur since I was really young. Always been passionate about marketing, business, and more. Worked my way up to VP of marketing at a large lifestyle sports nutrition company, and just an overall happy, outgoing, friendly person.
It's interesting because we didn't meet at a party, but that was pretty much the introduction he gave on the very first date we had together. And I'll never forget, on our first date, it was at a coffee shop. He had researched me. So he came in hot because he knew that I was an entrepreneur and an author and all these things. So I feel like he came to the date and he was like, oh, I know about you, but also like I was a biz kid in middle school. And I was like, what the heck is a biz kid? And I'm going to have Adam explain what that meant. But it was such a cool story. And then he told me that he was nicknamed the Biz Kid by his local newspaper. And I was like, this person right here on this date is phenomenal. So for everyone listening who's like, what the heck is a biz kid? Please tell us a little bit more about your entrepreneurial journey that started when most people were trying to figure out long division.
Before middle school, I was selling candy necklaces and other items outside of my desk. And then when we went to middle school, it was outside of my locker. More people, more business. It was wonderful. And then I found and discovered eBay. And I started flipping books from my local bookstore. We had big authors coming to town, and I realized that I could sell signed books from these major authors. Some I knew, some I didn't, for quite a pretty profit, especially for a 13-year-old on eBay. So I hired my friends in certain cases. I went down there alone in other cases, get a ton of books signed, and ended up pre-selling as much as I could because I couldn't front all of the money to pay for the books before getting them signed. And yeah, I was an eBay power seller when I was a teenager. And yeah, that was it.
I think what's so interesting about that story is I don't know really many people who were doing that back then. And I think for a lot of people who grew up to be entrepreneurs, maybe they were doing a little bit of that when they were younger, but a lot of us didn't even know what that word meant. So and I know the answer to this, but tell everybody sort of what drove you at such a young age to do interesting, cool things like this.
I don't know. I mean, I just wanted to create value, and I knew that a dollar was more or less like a scoreboard to that. So as I was selling, as I was making money, that dollar coming in was a sign of me doing a good job. And it was like a game. It was like a sport. I mean, I loved sports. I played sports, but this was just another sport outside of that. So for me, it was not as much working for someone else as being able to work and create things on my own and do that, through those ways.
I know that when I was growing up and I was playing with Barbies, my Barbies were at like business meetings. My Barbies were like doing stuff. They weren't just like sitting around, like pretending to be at the pool.
My wrestling figures that I was collecting were in boxes. They weren't even.
That's what I was going to ask you. That's what I was going to ask you, because I feel like you were the same thing. Like I remember the first time I went to Adam's childhood room, it's packed with collectibles.
Yeah.
And like, there's two types of people in this world. There's people who like open up their things they get when they're a kid and play with their toys. And then there's people that like keep them in the boxes. So even from an early age, you were thinking about that.
Yeah, I guess I understood the value of maybe putting off certain satisfactions, certain things for more. I forget the more eloquent way of saying that. Maybe Jen, you can repeat it. But yeah, I just knew that, for example, putting money in the bank, getting interest as a kid. I think I put money in the bank. My parents would throw in a few extra bucks. Like when I wanted to take it out, I knew it was going to be more than what I put in. And that was the same thing with toys. I guess if I bought a toy at a certain price, I understood that there was a chance that it could appreciate in value. So instead of taking it out of the box, or like Beanie Babies, which didn't appreciate in value, taking the tag off and, you know, playing with them, I got just as much value about having them in my possession, and even more enjoyment in the idea of them being worth something in the future.
So now that we all know, because I think a lot of people at home are like, yeah, I did the whole Beanie Baby thing too, and now they're worth like 50 cents. So do you ever regret not playing with any of these things when you look back?
No, no,
Nothing?
no, nothing. I had fun playing with my friends' toys.
Do you have an equivalent of how you get that feeling now? Because it's not like you collect action figures now, but do you still have any type of thing that gives you that rush?
Maybe credit card points, like feeling like you're
Mm,
gaming credit cards, even though I only have a few. But like
yeah.
looking at credit card points and redeeming them for certain values, I guess just couponing here
I
and
was
there.
just going to call you out on
Oh
that.
my gosh,
Tell us
yeah.
about your coupon habits.
I get served so many discounts from Seamless, Caviar, Uber Eats, all, and like, you know, Lyft, especially like when we need rides. But yes, I will not buy something unless I find a coupon for it, and I will always find a coupon for it.
He will. And even if it's like a coupon that's like takes us out of our way to get the thing, he'll still do it.
Yeah,
So
sorry.
it's fine because I've always been a discount shopper too. And I've always loved coupons. So I never got weirded out by that, especially on our first couple of dates. But when I put it out there to my world, to all of the listeners of the show, what questions they had for you, a lot of the questions were around our first date. And this episode happens to air on March 19th, which is the 5th anniversary of our very first date. So I want us to go back in time and talk a little bit about that moment. So most people listening to the show know that I met Adam after I did a challenge where I went on 14 first dates. I didn't meet anybody I liked. Adam was date 15. And I'll never forget, we met at a coffee shop on a Sunday. And I'll never forget, I got there early and I was sitting at a table, sort of feeling jaded and overwhelmed by the dating process. And I remember the door open and I felt like I was on a Hollywood movie set. It felt like there was like air being blown on Adam's face and like these spotlights. And I just remember this person coming into the coffee shop, so excited to be there, so happy. And just, there was just so much life in this human being. And I was immediately excited, but I want you to share what kind of first impression you had when you walked in the coffee shop and saw me.
I was excited. You were the girl that I had already known so much about without actually meeting you in person.
Did anything, because was so public and I am so public on the internet, were you scared? Were you wondering, like, is this person going to be what I've read about? Like, what were you thinking?
It was a first date. I had been on enough first dates that you don't get your hopes up, but you just get excited about the opportunity to get to know and meet someone. So I didn't have the biggest expectations. I just wanted to enjoy the first date.
Because I am somebody who is very public about things and posts about things and writes about everyone in my life, were you at all scared that if we dated, you would end up as a plot line?
Yes, I did. I thought I was just going to be another entry in your blog.
How does it feel 5 years later to know that you have shown up in chapters of books, on Instagram posts, on podcast episodes?
I guess I'm just used to it at this point. It's funny that you say that because I was like, I avoided the whole blog post, but instead I've just been included in everything else since. So,
I mean, I feel like that's sort of something that comes with knowing me as a partner or a friend, is that I write about my real life and I write about the real people, and I try to change names and details, but it's hard to change your name and your details. So
I'd be upset if you did.
Yeah, if I called you like Andy or something. So I think that's great that you've just been a good sport about that. And I appreciate that. And I try really hard not to like exploit too much, because you're a decently private person. I mean, you don't post on social media a lot. You don't like put yourself out there a lot. And how does it feel to sort of be with a person who's the polar opposite?
I've come to expect it. I've not come to expect it. I just like, I enjoy it. I mean, I'm happy to be public through you. I don't know how to properly, I overthink things when it comes to me. So it's nice
So
when you do it
back
for me.
to me
Yeah.
on that first date, what was it about me where you were like, oh, okay, I want to see this person
Again?
again?
Just general shared we shared a lot in common. There was just an immediate click, chemistry, connection, whatever you want to call it. I mean, it was 2 hours at a coffee shop. It felt like 10 minutes, and we had a lot more to talk about. And it seems like you were enjoying the date as well. So for that reason, I said, why not? Let's go to a second date. And I love you.
Yeah, he didn't actually say I love you on the first date, but by maybe the fourth date, I actually found a text message proof that like 2 months into dating,
I definitely told you before.
You definitely told me before that he said I love you. So he was pretty quick with that, which I was so fascinated by because I was like, no one's ever really told me they loved me so fast and meant it like that. So that was cool. Anyway, on the first date, we talked a lot about going on the TV show The Amazing Race. Do you remember why that meant so much to us on the first date?
No.
I don't really either, but it meant so much to us that after that first date, because I was like, oh, I want to see this person again. I saved Adam's number in my phone as Adam Amazing Race, because on the first date, I guess that just got me so fired up. Even 5 years later, you're still saved in my phone as Adam Amazing Race.
Yeah.
And we both don't know why we talked about it so much, but
it was a great topic of conversation.
Yeah, but like I don't know what we would have been talking about. I think we said like we'll be partners together on it.
Yeah, it's like what reality show do you want to be on, and what one would be the most fun? And I think we both said Amazing Race. We're like, yeah, let's do it. We can do it together. I'd be good at this. I'd be afraid of this.
You want to know the crazy part is that Adam and I actually auditioned for The Amazing Race, and we got like pretty close to the final round where we were like about to be like on a plane to get health screenings.
Yeah, like next week.
And when things got real, we both were like, so to get on The Amazing Race, it's a very weird story, but we sort of got we got exported, or we got like pushed to like the final round. Yeah. And we had to submit an audition tape, and we filmed this audition tape all over Brooklyn and Manhattan, and it was a pretty decent tape, right? I thought it was pretty good.
It was awesome.
If you actually want to see it,
link to it.
I should really make this public on our 5-year anniversary. And we sent in this tape. It was like a labor of love. We did all of these phone calls, and they're explaining the process to us. And it's like, you not only is the actual race like brutal, but if you get kicked off week 1, you have to like be put in this like almost like a quarantine in a hotel with no internet, no phone access. You can't do work for like 6 weeks. You can't talk to anybody. So you have to like quit your job for a good 2 months. Yeah. And we both were like,
well, they do that so nobody knows when you actually got kicked off or
you're
lost.
Sworn to secrecy. Yeah. But it was funny because we went through the grueling process, and neither of us wanted to admit that maybe it wasn't the best idea. And I remember when we got rejected, they were like, sorry, we didn't pick you. There was just a sigh of relief, because what do you think if we would have got on, would we have done it?
I don't know, Jen. I mean, we probably would have, because we had tried so hard to get on in the first place.
We did.
They totally, hooked us on that. The idea of being on the show, but it would have been too much. We would have had to quit our jobs at the time. I mean, what we were doing, the commitments that we had already made, and it would have been a big risk.
I honestly think if we would have got it, I would have said, let's go, because my ego drives a lot of things, but I think it would have been a really bad decision.
And this podcast would be about The Amazing Race.
I mean, I just feel like it would have been a really bad decision because the camera's on you constantly. And I think that that's a lot for a relationship. And B, I don't know how good we would have been on An Amazing Race. Like I'm scared of everything. I don't, and like I don't know. I think you would have been great, but I think I would have been like, I would have got us kicked off round 1. I would have said, send me home or send me back to the hotel room. I keep thinking how happy I am that we didn't get on it. But also how ironic it is that that's what we talked about on our first date. And then they reached out to us years later asking us to be on.
Right. That was another reason why we probably would have done. And we were like, Destiny, we're going to win $1 million. You're right. We probably would have gotten kicked off.
I would have said yes, we would have gotten kicked off. So that was something funny that happened. But another thing that I don't really talk about quite often is that we sort of went on our own amazing race. And about a year and a half into dating, we both were working for ourselves. We were both freelancing and we were about to move in together. And we sort of made this decision that we, instead of moving into a new apartment together because our leases were up, we were going to spend couple of years traveling around the country. And a lot of people love to hear about that. And we don't really talk about it often, not for any reason, just because it became our life or our lifestyle for 2 years. But, you know, a lot of people probably want to know what were some of the highlights of living in new cities all the time.
I think start a little before that and say we worked really hard to get ourselves in a position to be able to do this, because this was pre-pandemic, everyone's working remote. We had to get in a place where we actually had so much in line that we could be able to do such a thing. So I had been let go from a company that ultimately went under. And Jen had already been starting freelancing for so long. So, you know, the decision was made for me to go into this freelancing road. I learned from Jen. So at that point, I was able to work wherever I wanted. I got a big enough book of business, which was great. And, you know, basically started a one-man agency. And, you know, Jen was just a perfect role model for me. So when the time came, like Jen said, when our leases were up and we decided to just go city by city, we were in a place where we could work wherever we wanted to live wherever we wanted. And it was a time where not a lot of other people were doing just that. So, you know, we started in Portland, Oregon. It was Airbnb this place and that place. And
but I think I'm glad you backed up, because I think sometimes I leave that part out of the story, is like, we didn't just like quit everything and go. We had built this life for a while. You know, I had been on my own for maybe 2 years. Adam had been on his own for maybe 6 months at this point. And we knew that it was either move into an apartment in Brooklyn and work out of co-working spaces, or live somewhere else and work out of wherever. But I think it's important to also say that we didn't have much of a plan after that. Like, we had never been to Portland, Oregon as our first place. Like, we knew nothing about Portland, Oregon. So I think it's important to know that we don't plan too far in advance, and that works for us as a couple. So why do you think we picked Portland, Oregon? Because I can't for the life of me remember.
I think it was October. We knew if we waited any longer, it was going to be too late. It was going to get in the rainy season. And it was someplace that neither of us had ever been. But the idea of it sounded great. And it was like, it was one of our favorite cities that we went to. And it wasn't like the honeymoon. This is the first time we're like traveling. It was an awesome city. We had so much fun.
Yeah, it was. And it was something that we knew nothing about the city. We just found a place on Airbnb and sort of moved in, and it worked out. And I think, like, you know, when you hear about like the 2 years that we did that, there were some places, actually most places, where we ended up in like these gem of apartments. And there's some stories where we ended up in horrible living situations.
A lot of times when we came back to New York City.
Yeah, that was true. So like, we would have come back and like sublet a place in New York City,
in a different part of the city.
And some of those places were like horrendous. There was one, I remember Adam's mom dropped us off at one, and she like helped us bring our stuff into the front door, and literally walked right out the front door and was like, good luck. She was like, this was horrible. And at that point, it had been like almost 2 years into this process. We were both so jaded and our tolerance was so high. We're like, what's wrong with this place? It's fine. Meanwhile, thinking back, it was disgusting. But there was one place in Denver that did not look like it did on Airbnb at all, and was in like a really bad like situation of a place. And that was an interesting situation because we contacted Airbnb, and luckily they were very helpful with it. But I remember like walking around Denver for an afternoon with like all of our belongings to our name, trying to figure out where to go next while Airbnb was helping us figure it out. But
that was the last day your suitcase rolled.
My suitcase broke. Yeah. I mean, that was like a weird time too. But, you know, people always ask, like, during those 2 years, obviously we spent a lot of time together. And do you think obviously it strengthened our relationship, because here we still are, but people want to know, like, you're spending so much time together. And this was pre-pandemic.
I mean, look, it strengthened our relationship. Do we have a strong relationship as strong as like we do now going into it? No. Did that experience change it? Yes and no. I mean, in some ways, like, yes, we got closer. Yes, we, had to be on our own for so long and just basically create a life all day, every day for a long period of time together, agreeing on things. Yes, but we already knew that as well.
Yeah.
But it was an amazing experience. We just took so many memories from it. It allowed us to notch up so many more memories together, which I think just creates a more rich relationship at the end of the day. So
yeah, I agree. I think it showed us that we have more in common than we think, because not only, it's not like just like you're traveling to a new place with the person, you're living there with the person. So you're doing a lot of the things with the person. And I think it showed us that we have more in common. We like to do the same things. We like to build these new routines together. So I thought that was pretty cool too.
Yep.
That's all you have to say about it.
No, I don't know what.
I feel like people want to know so much about that time in our lives, but for some reason it's not super interesting to us. I don't know. Like, I always think about, should I write a book about this time in our lives? And in my head, I'm like, yeah, but it was, I don't know. It wasn't like a fun getaway trip. I mean, we moved to different cities. We worked out of those cities. So it wasn't like we were vacationing constantly. And
It's way more common today.
yeah, but I think it prepared us for this pandemic because we've been living and working together in very close quarters for many, many years.
Yeah. I mean, we were very smart with how we approached it.
So I brought you on the show today because this is part of my series where every single month I bring someone on the show and ask them about something I think they're great at, but don't tell them what the topic is.
I know, I've been asking you what we're going to talk about. I haven't gotten anything.
So I want you to guess. What do you think that you are excellent at that most people aren't?
I don't know.
What do you think? What's one thing you think you're good at?
Smiling.
No, I'm not going to do a whole podcast episode about you smiling. Anything else?
Being positive.
Yeah, you definitely are being positive. You're somebody who really does wake up and think like this is a great day, but that's also not what I'm going to talk to you about. I think that you are really, really good at making people feel comfortable.
Yes.
So you know that.
I do. Well, I know that about myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I embrace awkwardness and I feel like I can make someone feel comfortable in a lot of situations where they may feel awkward. I will take that awkwardness off them and put it onto me.
But I think that's like an incredible, oh my God, I'm sitting on Goofy's squeaky toy and I can't edit that out. So you're all going to hear her little fish squeak. But I think that that's a very powerful, powerful thing to be good at, because I've been that person in situations who's left out. I've been that person who is sort of just like sitting in the background, too shy to speak. You go out of your way to read the room or even read like your Zoom calls and be like, oh, no one spoke to this person yet. Or, you're at a dinner and nobody's asked that person a question. Like, you go out of your way to pull people in. Do you realize that? Do you have a method to that?
If they want to be pulled in.
But like, when you're in a situation in your head, are you like, oh, this person hasn't spoken in a while?
I always want everyone to have a good time. Like, I always want everyone to be happy. I want everyone to have a good time. I'm selfless in that way. And I always cater to everyone in the room in that sense. So I do. I think I naturally just deliver in that way.
Why does that mean so much to you?
I don't know. Peace, harmony. I mean, I just feel like everyone, I don't know. I just want everyone to have a good time.
Yeah, but you do such a good job of it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm happy when other people are happy. I find my happiness through others. So I know that if someone's not going to have a good time, it's going to affect my mood. And the best way to find the best mood and for me to be my best self is when others are happy.
So this is something that I've watched very closely you do over the years and have tried really hard to get better at it. So for people who want to take that stance of being the one that makes people feel included, what tips do you have for them?
Well, you have to know if they want to be included or not, because if they don't want to be included, then they're much more comfortable knowing that you're not going to put them on the spot, or you just
So how
have
do you
to
know that?
our body language a lot of times. I mean, just reading the room, making eye contact, smiling. Again, it's a lot of what I said that you didn't say, that you said we weren't going to talk about, but smiling is one of those things. Like if someone smiles at you and you smile back, that's like an opening for a conversation. And if you smile at them and then they look the other way, then maybe they don't want to talk, but that's fine.
See, I don't agree because I've been the awkward person who like wants to talk, but I'm not smiling. I'm just like looking all over the place.
That's one part of the equation, I guess I should say. It's not the only thing that matters. But no, I mean, I think back to what I originally said. If I feel like someone is feeling awkward at that moment, I will step up and take the spotlight and the attention off them and say something silly, do something awkward, and then that awkwardness is then passed on to me. Even if it wasn't awkward being them, it is now on me. So maybe, and then that person naturally gravitates to a more comfortable place because they may feel more comfortable in that situation.
Have you always been like this?
No, I was shy back in the day. So I think maybe I come into it in a unique place where I know what it feels like to be that person as well.
I just find it so fascinating though, how, and maybe it is natural. Maybe you don't think this in your head, but to me, you are just so good at being able to make a room full of people all feel like they belong there.
Well, because I want to be there. I think that's another thing. Like don't eh, I try to make the best out of every situation. So when I step into a room and I show that I want to be there, people start to think, well, maybe I should want to be here too.
Try to be super inclusive too. I really do, because I know how it feels to be left out. So I do try to be really inclusive, but
You're better at it than me, I think, in
no,
certain
I
situations.
really think like what makes you better at it than me is that sometimes I'll feel awkward to pull that person in. You just go for it. You just go for it. Whereas I second guess it. I feel awkward. You're just like, nope, I'm going to ask that person a question, or I'm going to walk on over and say hi to them. Like, you are fearless with that. And maybe you don't realize it, but from someone who's watched you closely for 5 years, that's like part of my job, I feel like here. It's like a natural thing for you and you're fearless about it. And I just hope you know that, because that's a trait that like I don't know honestly anybody else who's that good at it.
Well, thank you. I don't know how to pass that off though. Other than, again, I think the most important thing is coming to a conversation situation and bringing a positive attitude, a positive energy, and showing a genuine interest in wanting to be there. I think that's where it all begins.
I think one thing people might not know about you if they know you is that you are somebody who really does want to be where they are. And you are somebody who really is in the present, being happy that they're in the present. Like, I feel like when you're in a situation, you're in a room, you are just happy to be there and you're not looking to be anywhere else. And I don't think most people know that about you. What's one thing you don't think people know about me?
That's really being put on the spot. Oh man. You're so public and open about everything. I think you've covered everything.
What's one thing that after 5 years you think people might not know about me?
You love making up songs for Goofy.
That is true. But what's something about my personality that maybe people don't know?
Well, you're very shy.
What do you mean?
Very shy.
Say more.
Jenny, you're very shy. You know what I mean.
Say more. That's like you can't just say that and then not explain it.
You're
in what situations?
You do keep, in certain situations you keep a lot in. Like you protect yourself, you protect your feelings, you protect a lot, and in that way, I guess does that fall under being shy? Maybe, but yes.
I think there's actually two separate things you're saying here, but that's great. Number one, I do think I am shy in some situations. And number two, I don't open up to everybody, but if I do open up to you, it means I feel safe around you.
Yeah.
And we like noticed that recently with like a new friend in my life. I keep telling Adam, I'm like, I feel like I can be completely myself. And I like am bragging about that to Adam because I'm not like that with everybody.
Yeah.
And I think you see that. And I remember early on, it would piss me off. And you'd be like, you should be more yourself around people. And I would be like, that's just a loaded thing to say, but you're right. Okay. I'm going to end this interview like I end them all. Fill in the blank. You're not getting any younger. So I thought you had this prepared. You said you knew what you were going to say.
No, I knew that you were going to ask. I didn't think about what I was going to say. So you're not getting younger. So go out there and make today the best day ever.
Woo! Okay. Where can people find you if they want to say hello?
On Instagram at Adam Kossoff.
And finally, we have been together for 5 years, the day that this episode comes out. What do you got to say about that?
5 of the best years of my life.
5 of the most interesting, adventurous, unusual, and fun years of my life.
Happy. No, very happy. Coming into it, I was very happy. I'm happier than ever now.
So, do you think we should get married today?
Yes.
I guess people will just have to wait and find out. Until next time, all my love, Jen Glantz. Bye. Hey, you. Thank you for listening to the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast. There are hundreds of thousands of pods out there, so thank you for listening to this one. You can find the show notes for this week's episode up on our website, anyyounger.com. Subscribe, rate, and review the You're Not Getting Any Younger podcast on iTunes so that other ears around the world can listen too. Oh, and join our secret You're Not Getting Any Younger Facebook group, where over 1,000 people are talking about how to disrupt their lives, for a good reason, to make it count. Until next week, all my love, Jen Glantz.